Ever get the feeling that, like, everyday life, the memories we hold on to, they have a deeper meaning? That's kind of what this whole deep dive with Annie Ernaux is about.
Yeah, she's a Nobel Prize winner now, right?
Yeah,
But she really shakes things up by showing us how the ordinary stuff, it can be extraordinary.
exactly. And she's not just some, like, obscure writer either. She's got this way of taking, like, little details, a childhood thing, even a shopping list.
And turning it into, like, this profound statement about society.
Right. It's like, whoa, didn't expect that depth. So for this deep dive, we're going deep on some analysis of her life and this book, The Years.
It's going to change how you see those personal stories, that's for sure.
Okay, so to really get her, we got to get where she came from, right?
Absolutely. Picture this. France, just after World War II.
Heavy stuff.
Totally.
Yeah.
Huge class divides, women had limited opportunities, a society trying to piece itself back together. That's the world she's born into.
And even within that, her own upbringing adds another layer, right?
Oh, for sure. Modest family, working class, small town. But her parents, they wanted better for her, sent her to this strict, formal, religious school.
Whoa, talk about a contrast, like stepping into a different universe almost.
Exactly. And that clash between those working class roots and this traditional, almost elitist school, it made her crazy aware of social hierarchies, even as a kid.
You can see it in her writing too. There's this one part in The Years that stuck with me. She talks to her math teacher, right, trying to explain something, using like selling coffee as an example.
Yeah.
Her classmates totally lost, couldn't relate at all.
Wow. That's such a small detail, but it's huge. It's like this perfect example of the barriers that exist everywhere, even in the same classroom.
Right, like, whoa, this ordinary teaching moment is suddenly about way more.
And for Erno, it was this painful reminder of the divide. Like her world and theirs were just different. It's something she wrestles with her whole life, class belonging, all of that.
And speaking of her life, it's interesting, right? She doesn't become a writer right away. She's not coming from this Parisian intellectual scene or anything.
Totally. Her life was different. Wife, mother, experiencing things outside that whole literary bubble. It was later that her voice, that unique style, really came out.
And that's really where her writing style comes in, right? It's been called flat, even unnovelistic, which I don't know about you, but at first, that didn't exactly have me running to the bookstore.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I get it. It's not your typical page turner, that's for sure.
So what's the deal with this whole unnovelistic thing? What makes it so different?
Okay, so one of the biggest things she does is this no I thing. It's wild. Even when she's talking about her own life, like really personal stuff, she uses she, we, people.
Yeah, it's like she's removing herself from the story almost.
Exactly. It's like she's stepping outside of herself and it creates this distance.
I remember reading The Years, and it really made me like work as a reader because I'm so used to that first person perspective, right? But here, it's like she's saying, hey, come be an observer with me, not just like hear my side.
Exactly. It's like she's saying, this is what I lived, but what do you see in it? It's
Yeah.
way more interactive.
It is. And this whole no I technique, wasn't that also part of something bigger going on in literature at the time?
Oh, absolutely. It was this huge shift away from those old school grand narratives, the ones trying to explain the whole world from one point of view.
Like, here's the story.
Right. But this was different. This was about capturing that everyday life feeling, those shared human experiences we can all relate to.
And Erno does that with these incredibly vivid, detailed descriptions. Like it's almost like painting a picture with words, but instead of some big landscape, it's the everyday stuff.
Totally. Grocery lists, those school uniforms, even just bits of conversation at a dinner party. They're not just details anymore.
They're like clues.
Yes. They become these artifacts, little windows into how society was changing, what people were anxious about, all of it.
There's this one part in The Years, I can practically picture it. She describes her parents' kitchen, and I mean, she goes into so much detail, like down to the chipped linoleum
Or
floor.
what'd you get from that?
It just said so much, you know, about their hopes, their struggles to build a better life for her. It wasn't just a kitchen.
That's what's brilliant. Those little details, they carry so much weight. It's like she's showing us how our everyday lives, they're totally tied to these bigger historical and political things happening around us. We're not separate from it all.
Which, of course, brings us to the heart of her work, right?
Yeah.
This social impact, the way she tackles class, gender, memory, and we can't forget those very mixed reactions when she won that Nobel Prize.
Yeah, some people were not happy about it, were they? Like, especially folks coming from a more conservative viewpoint, they really seemed to dislike her work. What were the big criticisms? Well, this whole idea of class betrayal, that was a big one. Like,
Yeah.
Erno really digs into what it feels like to move up in the world, especially in a place like France, That pressure to, like, leave your working class roots behind so you can fit in with the fancy
It's
intellectuals.
like you have to choose, right?
Mhm.
Success or where you come from.
Yeah, and that really bothered some people. They saw her writing about it as this attack, Like, she's trying to make people resentful of those who made it.
For others, it was the opposite, right? Like finally someone's talking about this stuff.
Oddly, it resonated with people who'd lived it, who'd felt that pull between ambition and guilt and just wanting to belong somewhere. It's not always pretty, that journey.
And she doesn't just talk about it in this vague theoretical way either. She brings in these really powerful stories from her own life.
Oh, totally. Like that one in the years, her dad, with the whole proper French thing.
Oh, yeah. He insisted on speaking correctly, but would get so angry if anyone dared to correct him.
Exactly. It just breaks your heart, right? Because it shows how much pressure he felt to fit in, to escape the stereotype of his background. It's like even language becomes this minefield.
And what gets me is Erno, she doesn't let herself off the hook either. Like, she gets that middle-class life she always wanted, but even that isn't simple, is it?
Nope, not at all. It has its own set of rules, its own kind of conformity. It's like that idea of be careful what you wish for.
So she's not giving us easy answers, is she? It's more like she's saying, hey, think about this.
Exactly. And I think that's what makes her so captivating to read. She's not preaching or judging. She's just laying out her experiences, her observations, and saying, what do you make of this? Let's figure it out together.
It's like what we were saying at the beginning. She takes these ordinary moments, these details from life, and boom, suddenly they mean so much more.
And that's the beauty, right? It's deeply personal, her writing, but it's also universal. Ambition, feeling out of place, the good and bad that come with change. It makes you look at your own life and the world differently.
So after this deep dive, if our listener takes away just one thing, what should it be?
That the ordinary is never just ordinary. Our lives, our memories, even the things we barely notice, they all matter more than we think. They're all part of this bigger story, this tapestry of what it means to be human. We just have to open our eyes and really see.